Yes, it's on and poppin', yes. This party's rockin', yes. The cutie shockin', yes. And there ain't no stoppin'. Actually, no. No, it will be stopping, because saying yes to everything makes you a doormat. Hello, I am Lisa Robbin Young, and this is Creative Freedom, your dose of empowerment for creative entrepreneurs. This is where can-do inspiration and how-to education collide to help you own your dreams without selling your soul. When I was younger, I learned a story about a loving grandmother who invited her entire family over for dinner. She told them she was going to make her delicious beef stew. And because she'd be cooking all day, she told people to arrive through the kitchen door so that she could greet them all with love and affection the minute that they arrived. She tried to be a good hostess, and she wanted to love on all of her family as soon as they got there. One by one, her sons and daughters began to arrive with their families and some of their families too. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren began to fill the home with noise, love, and laughter. But another thing also happened. As people arrived, they would offer their own advice to Grandma about the stew she was making. Don't put too much salt in it. Very well, Grandma replied. Can you leave out the beef? I'm a vegan now. Anything for you, sweetie. Carrots? Grandma, I hate carrots. As you wish, my love. For hours, Grandma greeted her guests and patiently stirred the stew while hearing all the requests from her loved ones. Finally, it was time to eat. Now, Grandma had set each place at the dining room table with a beautiful covered bowl. The aroma wafted through the house, and almost magically, the entire family drew themselves to the dining room. Crowding in around the table, looking at these gorgeous bowls, they all held hands and gave thanks for their time together and then sat down to eat. Her eldest removed the lid from his bowl. What's this? It's your stew, darling, just as you requested. No beef. One by one, the lids were removed to find a hot, steaming bowl of deliciously seasoned broth. No meat, no vegetables, no salt, just a fine, clear broth, piping hot and ready to eat. Well, where's the stew, Grandma? Well, you're looking at it, she replied. I wanted so much to make you all happy that I followed every instruction you gave me. You didn't want carrots, so I took them out. You didn't want salt, so I left it out. You, son, are a vegan now, so I didn't put any meat in either. By the time I took all your requests into account, this was all I could put in. I hope you all enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. And with that, Grandma sat down, removed the lid from her bowl of broth, and silently began to eat. This is what saying yes all the time does. It ruins your stew. Everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a request, but you as the stew maker need to know when to say yes and when to just do what you do best and make the damn stew your way. Otherwise, all anyone gets is a piping hot bowl of broth, weak at best. Many creatives have been taught to say yes to any opportunity that comes along, and I understand the logic, even if I don't always agree with it. On the one hand, we often limit ourselves by listening to our inner critic, the one that says we're not qualified, not ready, or in some way not good enough to take advantage of this opportunity that's before us. So in an effort to shut that monkey up, we say yes to anything and everything that comes along. Then there's the other hand. We start saying yes to everything because we have bills to pay. And we take on clients that we hate, clients that sap our energy. We do work that we hate. And we keep doing it because we feel like there's no alternative. We're stuck in dead-end work or with deadbeat clients. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a need that we all have to step away from the work, no matter how much we love it, and give ourselves room to refresh and recharge. I sometimes have to remind my clients that resting is doing something, that recovery is doing something, that self-care and sleep, and yes, even play is doing something, especially if you're a creative entrepreneur. That means that instead of filling your calendar to the brim with work that you hate or that may or may not actually pay the bills, sometimes we have to say no to an opportunity in order to keep that space open for something better. So today, we're going to take a look at what drives this need, and I'm going to share some ways to say no with class and authenticity. So here we go with number 1. Know your boundaries and honor them. When you're clear and confident on your boundaries, it's easy to say yes to the things that matter and no to the things that aren't in alignment. As a parent, I set boundaries with my kids so that they know what kind of behavior is appropriate and what isn't acceptable. And I enforce those boundaries with consequences. Remember the podcast episode where I told you about locking my bedroom door to keep people from bugging me during my sacred practice? That's a boundary. I honored that boundary by not answering the door every time somebody knocked. Eventually, they got the hint and they stopped knocking. But what about those times when things aren't so clear? Like maybe when you've said yes to exploring something and the deeper you get into it, the clearer it becomes that it's something that you just can't continue with. First, realize that this isn't unusual, especially for creatives who want to try new things. So my rule of thumb is to err on the side of being a little too honest at the onset of these kinds of projects. Tell your partner in crime you're not sure if you really want to do this, but that you're willing to explore the idea until you have more clarity. That way, when you do get to a point where you want out, you can gently remind them that this was only an experiment, an exploration, and that you're ready to be done. Or maybe you've got someone who's trying to talk you down on your rates. Maybe you've even offered them lower rates in the past or some kind of a discount, and they're asking you to stick with that old rate. Again, honesty and clarity are important here. Set those boundaries. But you don't have to justify a thing. You can just say, I understand that you'd like a lower rate, but that's not possible at this time. I've been able to offer you a lower price in the past, but that's not available anymore. Either one of those will work. And if somebody asks you why, you can just reiterate that that option isn't available anymore, or that option isn't available at this time. There's no need to explain yourself or justify your pricing strategy. This is your business. You get to decide when and how you set your rates. Sales and discounts end all the time. Your friends know that. Your clients know that. You don't need to mollycoddle them. Number 2, be honest with yourself and with others. Now let me reiterate the importance of honesty. Don't say what you don't mean. I once heard someone say, well, I'd love to offer you a lower rate, but I just can't right now. Wrong answer. I don't know anybody who loves lowering their rates. Otherwise, their rates would already be lower. And the minute you say something like that, they can smell a lie. So instead, try something like this. Well, I'd love to help you. My rate is $600 an hour. But only say that if you'd really love to help them. Because if you don't want to work with them, don't say things like that. They will come back with $600 an hour and you'll be working with them and kicking yourself for not having said no in the first place or not charging more. Saying no is sexy, y'all. You gotta learn that. Fusions get caught up in this yes trap all the dang time. Because we're good at a lot of things, we can do a lot of things, and we're pretty fast with some stuff. So we say yes, and people start to expect that we'll just handle everything. And then we do handle everything until we erupt or fall apart or get adrenal fatigue. Learn how to say no now. No is sexy. Honoring boundaries is sexy. Being a doormat is not sexy. So being honest also means taking an honest look at your calendar. Are you trying to do too much? Do you have breathing room to take breaks, step away, refresh yourself, get in a vacation? Do you have time for rest penciled in? Some people need more rest than others, especially if you're dealing with a chronic illness. So you have to be clear on your capabilities and your limitations. One of the big problems of under-earners is the idea that you have to work hard all the time. Now, if you're working 10 hours a week at $350 an hour, or 50 hours a week at $70 an hour, you're making the same amount of money. But in one scenario, you've got breathing room, while in the other, you're on the hamster wheel all week long. When you charge more, you can afford to be more generous, both with your clients and with yourself. That's not to say you can't say yes to a challenge. A good challenge can fire you up and inspire you to do more than you thought was possible. But if every day is a challenge, or just plain challenging, then something needs to change. Maybe you need to charge more in the future for this kind of work, or stop doing this kind of work. Maybe you need to fire clients that aren't a good fit. Only you know what you really need to do to bring your work back in alignment with your dreams. And you can only know that when you're honest with yourself. Number 3, be willing to accept the consequences. This is where the rubber meets the road. Most of us fear the consequences, which is why we keep saying yes when we really need to say no. We're letting fear drive the bus, which I talked about in a previous episode. So often, our feared outcomes never end up being our worst case scenarios, but we still do everything in our power to not have those outcomes happen. So we work for free. We lower our expectations and the expectations of others. We play to not lose instead of playing to win. There's actually research that suggests that the drive to not lose what we've already got is far stronger than the drive to do something that moves us closer to what we say we want. I've seen this at play with clients. One client wanted to double their income in a year. That's a doable goal if they stayed on track with their action plans. But they also wanted more time with their family, more time to travel, more time to play. A classic chaotic creative, they didn't want to miss out on the freedom of doing whatever they wanted whenever they wanted to do it, so plans kept getting pushed and massaged. Timelines kept getting bumped. Things that moved them closer to doubling their income didn't happen. So they got half their wish. They traveled more. They spent more time with their family. They even managed to maintain their income at about the same level with all that additional free time on their hands. But they didn't achieve their growth goal at the end of the year. They basically maintained their status quo income-wise. Now, don't get me wrong, keeping your income at the same level while increasing your time off is great. And had they been honest with themselves in the first place about what they really wanted, they probably would have been happy with that result and saw it as a success. But because they kept saying they wanted to double their income, but didn't consistently do the work to get where they wanted to be, they saw the year as a failure instead of a real success. They weren't ready to deal with the consequences of having both halves of their dream come true. But the good news is that you can also use this weird brain trick to your advantage. I had a client who had a goal to be on time for meetings and to stay on task during those meetings. So I agreed to help hold her accountable to that goal. We set up regular co-working sessions. If she was on time and she worked the whole session, we would celebrate. If she was late, or if she got sidetracked while we were co-working, hopping on Facebook or something like that, then she paid me $5 at the end of the session. One week, I think she paid me like $20. She never had that problem again. Tardinesses were rare, and when she sat down to work, she worked. In fact, as I was writing this episode, we sat down for a co-working session and she was early and she worked the entire time. She's finishing up her new book as I'm recording this. So it's really a matter of perspective. Are you willing to focus on what really matters to you and do the work to get the consequences.
Every day I see my dream. Every day I see my every day I see my dream. Every day I see my dream. Every day I see my dream. Every day I see my every day I see my dream. Every day I see my dream.
You're a creative entrepreneur. Use that creativity to your advantage to establish boundaries that serve you, to get the help you need to succeed, and to define that success on your own terms. If you're struggling with knowing where to start when it comes to boundaries and telling the truth, consider hopping into Overcoming Under-Earning for Creative Entrepreneurs. There's a whole lesson on owning your truth, honoring your boundaries, and saying no and yes in empowering ways. You can learn more about that at lisarobbinyung.com/under-earning. I will put a link in the description so you can just click and go. So now it's over to you. What boundaries have you been letting slip? Where do you need to get back on track and shore things up? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments and be part of our rising tide. Now, if you're only watching these videos, that's okay, but you're only getting about a third of the story. Every episode this season has a podcast episode that takes that learning deeper, including personal examples and stories that we don't share on video. Plus, when you register as a member of our Rising Tide, which is free, you'll get regular updates and access to a bunch of extra goodies like transcripts, worksheets, and more. And lastly, there's our live Q&A on my Facebook page this week, where we're going to talk more about how to say no with class and authenticity so that you can end the cycle of under-earning. All the details live on over at the website. If you liked this episode, you're awesome. Subscribe. Share us around with your friends. Sharing is caring after all. Next week, we're going to be talking about those sneaky signs that you need to charge more. And I hope that you'll join me for that next time. Until then, for more inspiration and education to help you own your dreams without selling your soul, come see what's shaking over at lisarobbinyung.com. You know you want to.